Today, we're going to be talking about the Coast Shelter Project, which was created, completed, and published by Jill and Becky. And it is a hypothetical trauma-informed design to shelter people with their animals. It's called the Coast Shelter Project. And today you're going to be introduced to quite a few concepts that may or may not be familiar. You're also going to see some drawings that are going to blow you away, wishing your shelter looked like them. I know that my shelter doesn't look like them, but the renderings actually help me with the building of my shelter. Let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Judy-Rae Karlsen. I am the project manager for a congregate shelter, co-shelter facility. My team and I renovated a 20,000 square foot former fitness center into a remarkable facility for 75 residents and 25 pets. It also provided offices for staff and their consultants and their service providers. We also provided training facilities for staff and the service providers for the pets as well. During the early construction phase, I met Jill and Rebecca. They came to Seattle to see my project and to use it for a piece of this project that they're doing. Perhaps the most unique feature of the shelter that we built is a pet care center. We know that most often people who are creating shelters and creating co-shelters don't have design input, which was extremely important for my pet care center. In my pet care center, we had offices for staff and volunteers, a grooming space, dog runs, interior dog runs, an isolation room, supply cabinets, storage, and then we put on the 6 acres of property outdoor fenced-in recreational areas. So one of the things that we looked at from our poll that we put on the conference site was how many people were able to receive design assistance for their shelter and their co-shelter. And not surprising, 98% of the people who responded built or created or designed their co-shelter project with no design assistance. So that is the hard way to get these projects done. So obviously, my dog is my home, realize this. And so we're going to share some design features that you can put in. If you already have a shelter, you can modify your shelter in some ways to make this a safer environment and a more efficient shelter program. The Co-Shelter Project is a multi-year exploration of a best case hypothetical emergency shelter that accepts people and their companion animals. Too often, shelter operators must make do with the limitations of space and budget without the ability to fully apply the ideas of trauma-informed design, which benefits people, animals, and staff. This project intends to provide a showcase of applied design ideas that can inform future real building projects about how to design places that provide dignity, foster mental health, encourage empowerment, keep people with their animals, and support community building to help families exit their crisis to a more stable life. So the presentation that you're going to hear today, it will provide an overview of the comprehensive report, which is available on the resource site. They're going to be highlighting various spaces and design elements that promote the successful and safe sheltering of people and their companion animals together. So I am going to turn this presentation over to Jill and to Becky. They'll be able to introduce themselves and get right into the presentation. Just a note, if you have a question, there is a Q&A section. You can see it to the right of your screen, you can go ahead and type in some questions or read the questions that are there, and then type in a new one if it doesn't satisfy your need, or you can go into the chat and say hi to friends that are here as well. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jill Pable and to Becky Stuntebeck, and let's get into the program.
Thank you, Judy-Rae, and it's a pleasure to be here with everybody. My thanks to Judy-Rae and Becky for all the time they both have spent with this project, and we're excited to share it with you. It has been a 2-year odyssey of exploring ideas, doing literature reviews, talking with people, developing designs, and so forth to get to this point. And as Judy-Rae said, this project really seeks to provide a hypothetical, meaning it's not built, best case architectural solution for providers to consider when you think about renovating or new construction to accommodate people and, importantly, animals. As Judy-Rae mentioned, my name is Jill Pable. I'm associated with Design Resources for Homelessness, a nonprofit that looks at the ideas from psychology, architecture, design, and other areas, and curates them into practical ways we can apply those things to help people be their best selves, especially those that have experienced trauma. So I kind of bring the architectural aspect to this, and then I'll hand it over here to Becky, who is the other part of this team.
Thank you so much, Jill. Thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Becky Stuntebeck. I'm a veterinarian, and my focus usually is animal shelter environments, but we're dealing with a lot of animal and people trauma in those contexts too. And so I had the great fortune to engage with Jill and Judy-Rae in this work and apply what I know about animal shelter facilities and veterinary clinics to this context of emergency co-sheltering. I currently work in my own consultation business, Pause to Elevate. And very briefly, I just want to say, if you ever have a chance to connect with Jill or Judy-Rae, they're two of the most wonderful people on earth. So find those opportunities. They are brilliant. They're movers and shakers. And I feel incredibly privileged to have had the opportunity to work with them through this project.
That is very sweet. Well, next we wanted to talk about a little bit of thanks to our organization supporters, because both Design Resources for Homelessness and My Dog is My Home have been long-term supporters of this. And I'll tell you how that happened in several stages in just a moment. But we're also indebted to a whole series of content experts. Judy-Rae is one of them. In fact, Judy-Rae is pulling double duty, also providing the setting, the site for this hypothetical project as well. As we go through these screens, we're going to also share with you some reports that you can download at absolutely no charge. In fact, on the screen now, you'll see the URL for this main project. If you've got your phone handy, you might want to get a screenshot of that URL, so if you want to pull that up later. So today we're going to be talking about a selection of the areas within the project. Unfortunately, we can't talk about everything because we just don't have enough time for that. But we do want to leave time at the end for Q&A as well. So Becky, take it away.
Yes. So I'm sure if you are here, you understand that there's not pre-existing information out there about this topic. We don't know, well, up to now, we didn't have access to information about what are the best practices when it comes to housing people and companion animals together. We have lots of evidence, fortunately, to draw on from across a range of disciplines that we were able to tap into and pull together to create the guidance for this project. And as a veterinarian, I provide that insight, but we also use human psychology, trauma-informed care for people and animals, and a range of other disciplines that haven't yet been pulled in together. And that all together has formed the basis of what we've created here. And as you, I'm guessing, well know, the human-animal bond is something that is so important to everyone, and in particular those most vulnerable people need opportunities to be able to hold on to their pets and have those relationships in their lives. And the importance of that, there's an increasing understanding across disciplines, and this is what that's in response to. So what we've aimed to create is a high quality living experience for clients and their companion animals that also has consideration for the providers, the staff, as well as any visitors and potential donors. And as Jill has said, this is not in existence. We used an existing facility as the basis of it, and then we dreamed. And we cannot say it enough. Do not tune out if you write yourself out of any of these designs. There are small pieces of this that can be incorporated into just about any location. It's not all or nothing. So if this is a topic you're excited about, go to this document and read it multiple times, because I guarantee you every time you look at it, you'll find something new, and there's different levels of resource inputs that go with different parts of this. Everything is very intentional. And we're also working very hard to really solidify best practices, aiming high, so that everyone, to the best of the ability of everyone's ability, can have a good experience in a facility like this. We're not telling you that it has to be like this. We're not telling you again that it has to be exactly like this. It's showing you options that you can consider incorporating into whatever you have accessible to you at any given point in time. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Jill.
Okay. A little bit more context before we dive in here. We want to let you all know also that what we're talking about today is actually part 2 of a 2-part thing. The first part is this report that you see here on the screen. This is already available at the My Dog is My Home resources site, section of their site. This is all text and gives you research ideas as to why we should be designing shelter for people with their animals. So if you're seeking grants or an otherwise, looking for the whys and whats and so forth of this, go to this first part first, which is also free. And then you can also get the second part as well. So, all right, so we're probably really going to be jumping in here. It looks very, very complex here. But I wanted to show you an overall of this before we dive into just parts and pieces of this. Again, this whole idea is to construct an emergency shelter that prioritizes the psychological state of mind of not only clients that live there, their animals, but also staff, volunteers, and visitors, all of which kind of form the culture of a space. So it's really springs from a collection of ideas, imperatives, and research finding that we kind of did first. And if you go to the report, you'll see a whole bibliography and a whole action to a matrix action thing at the back that shows you how we got from ideas to something that was applied. As Becky mentioned, you can use small parts of this like signage or the arrangement of rooms, or if your budget permits, you can use, groups of spaces or even bigger ideas as you see fit. But before we get into that, we just wanted to kind of briefly share with you the goals of this to see if, of course, if it overlines with the goals that you are thinking for your projects in the future too. First of all, and maybe primarily, we wanted to embed the ideas of trauma-informed design into this. That's why you're going to see tiny little ideas that get at human and animal experience, as well as big ideas that really affect, walls and windows and those kinds of things. If you see on the right here, there's 6 ideas of human fundamental needs that we reacted to. Interestingly, I love this part. Becky and I were talking about these needs, and she shared with me that these are actually animal needs as well, which I thought was actually a beautiful thing. That was the coolest thing ever. So we use these to kind of ground some of our ideas. And you'll see these ideas in large and small things, rooms, hallway widths, windows, but also where the animal toys are located and how you can turn on the fan to change your ventilation in the middle of the night and those kinds of things. So it's kind of at various scales, to be sure. Also, we want to prioritize animal and human experience of places here. We think this may be one of the differentiators of this project from other ones. We really wanted to put first and foremost how people experience space. What do you see? How does it feel to enter? How does it feel to arrive? This is a Great Dane's view of what it looks like to go into the large dog plaza, which means they can see what they're getting into and so forth. The other thing we wanted to mention is that the building is designed to be expanded or repurposed as needs change, because we all know needs change a great deal and all the time. So we think that's really important. Go ahead, Becky.
Yes. So in addition to that, we're pretty ambitiously trying to do our best to serve a very diverse population across humans and animals. So we know we want to enable people to stay with their pets to the greatest extent possible, because that's at the heart of all of this. But then we also know that in the real world, sometimes people might need to go off site and they need a safe place for their animal to stay. Cats and dogs, rabbits, what species are going to try to be in this space and existing in a way that is humane and feels comfortable. And I've particularly highlighted number 4 here, creates animal home places grounded in animal psychology to support a calm and positive emotional state. This is all about setting up an environment that optimizes the chances of success. When what I mean by success is that the level of stimulus and stress inducing moments can be minimized to the extent that we can through design of this facility, right? People are people, animals are animals. Things that are going to happen, we can't control that, but what we can do is optimize the chances that people and animals can feel calm and comfortable, and that sets up opportunities for this to go well and to feel accessible and doable to service providers as well. And it also sets up folks to move in a new direction from this emergency co-shelter when they're ready to do so as well. In terms of demographics, this has already been mentioned, but our capacity is up to 70 humans and 25 companion animals. And this is pretty consistent with what the available evidence shows is a level of pet parentage among folks who need housing. It includes adults of all genders, families, adults with special needs, including folks who may have special medical needs or have recently departed from a hospital stay or something similar to that. So again, we're trying to really make this available to a wide range of people. Not everyone will have animals, so we need to make sure that there's space for them to feel comfortable and to relax to the greatest extent possible. And we did decide that dogs and cats are included, and small mammals such as rabbits, maybe gerbils and hamsters in their own enclosures are very manageable, maybe reptiles, but that's going to be a case by case too. But that's what we're thinking of in terms of what you're going to see here today. Jill. Oh,
yeah,
still me.
Yeah, I think that's you. That's you.
Sorry. So again, this is that big view. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot we're just not going to have time to cover today. So some of the things that we won't have time for include our educational spaces, the human medical clinic. We have a clothing closet that's described. It's quite beautiful. And admin spaces. These are important parts of this design, and you'll be able to find that information in the document. We just don't have time to cover it here today. And also, we're planning on having time for Q&A, so get those questions in whenever you have them, because we want to address those to the extent that we can today.
So without further ado, we will jump into the site, starting with how one would experience this space. So here's a bird's eye view for you. And this is where Judy-Rae's site came into play for us. The first thing you might want to notice is that the main entrance to the space is actually in the back. And this is along a kind of a tertiary road that comes off of the secondary road that's down here. And we did that on purpose so that the entrance seemed a lot more private and a lot more human for people, because so many people here will be new to arriving and so forth. So signage is going to be really important to how this is actually encountered. So specifically arriving, going back to this view that you've seen before, obviously the roof is not shown here, but this is how you would arrive at this place, whether it's by van, whether it's by car, and this is actually covered. It's just not shown right now. But you'll see a few things that we'll be returning to time and again. First of all, there's a number of different entrances. Entrance over here is for people without animals, which is really noted by signage here on the floor. And this is the entrance for people with animals, recognizing that people without animals may not be very comfortable with that. And there's a dividing line between in the reception area so that the two populations don't have to mix unless it's desirable that they do. Generally speaking, we're going to be talking about the reception area here, the animal care clinic, which is over here, the outdoor animal areas, and then we'll also get into what we call the living and dining room. And then over here will be some of the sleeping areas. And that will be really all we have time for today, unfortunately. If you go to a kind of a human eye view of the entrances, this is some important things. This is the first impression people will have of the space, and it has to serve people without animals and people with animals. To the far left here would be the entrance for people without animals. And this one over here on the right, as you can see from signage here, would be for people with animals. Recognizing that there's going to be people out here waiting for rides and so forth. There's a variety of sitting areas here for people without animals, people with animals. And importantly here, there's also an animal entrance over here for people arriving who have stressed animals, animals that might bite, animals that are in a heightened emotional state, that takes them directly to the animal clinic. Which allows people to manage their animals a little bit easier than otherwise. There's also animal supplies for outdoor pickup here if the shelter desires to do that, and an outdoor grass here area for animals to relieve themselves. So a lot going on here in the exterior entrance for sure. As you move inside, this view shows the animal side. The person-only side is over here, but here you can see where the queue line would be to be checked in and so forth, which I'll talk about in a moment. But over here is also the flow of people moving past check-in and then into metal detectors if that's necessary to go into the main part of the shelter. Over here is also waiting, a lot of different types of seating for waiting here. Knowing that people are going to be waiting for rides and so forth. You'll also see furniture here designed for charging your devices, because that's always a kind of a source of a lot of discontent of keeping our devices safe, but also water dishes for waiting animals and so forth, and animal pods, which we're going to be talking about in a moment here too. But this whole area is designed for people entering waiting with animals. Looking specifically at the reception desk, there's a lot going on here too. For somebody who's never been here before, they would need to check in with their animal. So here we have a space to get a drink of water for yourself, trash to dispose of that cup, and water dishes for hot animals that are just coming in from outside. As you come into the queue line, here you can start to read policies and so forth as you're waiting. And these strange looking portholes down here, I have to thank Becky for. These are scent portholes to entertain animals as they're waiting too, because we sometimes forget that animals can get bored as well. You'll also notice that the reception desk is very deep. There is a transaction shelf here for writing a check or reading some policies and so forth. But also you'll see this is very deep for giving staff a sense of security when dealing with sometimes highly emotional people. As you turn around the corner, you'll see also some more scent portholes. This is actually a child sort of puzzle because people might have both animals and children with them. And then over here is a separate optional place to have private conversations about health or check-in matters and so forth as you go through. So it's very important that this was designed thoughtfully, because this check-in process needs to be very, very efficient to minimize the time it takes and the stress it puts on people and their animals. And Becky, I think you take it from here.
Yes. So the waiting pods are designed with the idea that, again, we're going to be dealing with people and animals who are experiencing stress as they arrive. And some animals, just like people, when they're experiencing stress, don't look any different. And some animals look stressed. They might become more aroused. They might become louder than usual. And so in the spirit of trying to maintain a reception area that is as quiet as it can possibly be and not overstimulating, we've created these special waiting areas, potentially for an animal who is otherwise feeling like they need to bark at everything they can see moving in the reception area. Or maybe they have a rabbit or a cat who's particularly stressed, and this is a quieter space. The other idea of these, you'll notice there's doors to them, and those connect to our animal care suite. And so animals who may need to be moving, and families who may need to be moving in that direction, whether it's for an intake checkup and to get your vaccines checked up on and whatnot, or they have a need at that time, but they're coming in through the main reception area, that's a way to move them expediently into that space. So then animal care suite, the next view is the idea behind this. This certainly could be a lot less. It could be more than what it is. But the idea was, what if we equipped a space that can essentially serve as more or less a full service veterinary clinic? And maybe it not only serves the population currently residing in the shelter, but serves as a source of veterinary care potentially to other folks in the area. Maybe people who aren't currently sheltering, but are unhoused with pets. That's fine, Jill, you can stay there.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a big overview piece, and that central part is that veterinary clinic. So we built it with the ability to provide surgery if needed, to provide veterinary medical care if needed, but it also could be a space, again, where as people with animals are arriving, they need to get a little bit of screening just to make sure they don't have evidence of an infectious disease that's going to put other people or animals at risk. They may need to get up to date on their vaccines or their dewormers, that sort of thing. Or if they have a welfare concern that warrants attention, they can get that attention here. Behavioral medications and so on. Some of the highlights of what you're seeing from this big picture overview, we've been very careful to maintain separation of species from the lobby onward. So the pathway is green and red up above. We're thinking about this in terms of predator prey. Cats happen to fall into both, but we want to keep dogs away from everybody is the short version of it. Cats go to the top, and other small animal species are going to go to the top. We have places to house animals in this ward if needed, if for some reason they can't stay in one of the sleeping pods that Jill's going to show you in a moment. Or if it's their owners need to go off site for a few hours during the day and they just need a safe spot to be secure and feel comfortable. Let's see. And then the last but not least, and I think I'll talk about this up ahead. Yeah, go ahead to the next slide, Jill. We've got this hub that is directly accessible to the living area, connected to this corridor, the long rectangle that you can see here. But then in the oval, we've got animal supply storage, where residents can prepare food for their pets, can prepare enrichment activities, which is also usually food when it comes to dogs. They can store other supplies if needed. And that way, because the sleeping pods are limited, they still have a secure place where they can access those resources when they need to. Let's see, we'll jump into the next slide then. There are also dog kennels on site. And again, the intention with these isn't necessarily that dogs are going to be living here like they would in a shelter environment, but double compartment housing with this separation of this guillotine door, this double compartment style is a reasonable place for a dog to live for a short time, for a couple weeks potentially. It allows them to have a living room side and a bathroom side, which helps mitigate stress. And so while it could just be I'm hanging out for a few hours while my person's away, they also could stay there if for some reason they shouldn't stay in the general population, but it allows them at least to stay on site then. Next slide. This is, and you'll see in the smaller image up in the upper right corner, The dog kennels are adjacent, and those are indoor, outdoor. But then this area with the awnings, the blue and red, is outdoor. And you'll see lots of gates, lots of managed access points. And that's because as people and animals are coming and going, and in this case, this is a dog area, we don't want to have accidental interactions, right? A lot of dogs are great with other dogs, but sometimes on leash, maybe they're not. And so we want lots of good vision lines for people to know who's approaching, what dogs are approaching, and be able to manage where they are in space relative to who else is around. And then this is also a point where you could hang out. If it was a comfortable spot, you could play with your pet a little bit, but it's also an access point then to a lot of the outdoor amenities for the animals. So I will dive a little deeper into some of that now. So in terms of what we have outside, there's a lot of goodies here. My dog would be in heaven. So lots of distinct zones. Again, with that idea of we want every animal, every people with an animal to have an opportunity to spend outside and get the benefits of being outside if that's something they want. So we've got some areas that are mimicking dog parks, and I'll go into a little more detail here. You'll get better pictures, but we've got space for the cats even up here in this purple. And then we've got a walking path that leads out to the wider grounds around the facility if people just want to get out and stretch their legs. And then this yellow area, I'll talk about that too in a moment here. Next slide, please. Oh, the one thing I will, Jill, if you don't mind backing up, I'm sorry. What we were really careful about, even with these outdoor areas, is to make sure that we were managing what dogs could and couldn't see at any given point, because we know when dogs can see a lot of activity, they get excited and they bark. And again, a little bit of barking is fine. That's part of normal dog behavior. But when they get really stimulated or overstimulated, particularly when they're already stressed, excessive barking becomes a problem because it just sort of amps up the whole atmosphere and can contribute to their own stress then, as well as the stress of other animals and people in the vicinity. Okay, I'm actually ready now. This is that yellow area that I was shown on the overview. And in this image, we've got these long rectangular runs over here. And the idea here is this is a run where one family, one person and their dog could go in there and toss a ball. You know, those dogs where the ball is the thing. That's the only thing they want to do. And that's what you can do here. Or if you aren't a social dog, you maybe can't successfully go into that group enclosure. This is a place where you can go and run and get your exercise. But then adjacent to that, under these white awnings, we have these pods. And the pods are meant to be a place where someone with a dog can just go and relax, sit quietly. If you have a dog who isn't feeling active, a person who isn't feeling active, you can just sit and enjoy the outdoor space. So yet another option there. But then moving on to our dog plazas, we've got a large dog plaza and a small dog plaza here that more or less mirror each other, with a range of activities, lots of space, secure with a fence. Again, dog heaven right here. There's agility equipment for those dogs who like to get up high and do those sorts of things. People can be interacting with their pets during that time. The dogs can go swimming or wading. There's a splash pad over here. There's an area with shade too, if that's a challenge in the environment where you're at. And again, you can't undersell the space. Again, just space to range, sniff, and choose what you're doing, who you're interacting with, and so on makes a huge difference. And again, the premise here is dogs who have the opportunity to move and to be outside and have fun are dogs who are going to likely be better behaved when they're inside and expected to sit quietly and so on. So we need to give them these opportunities. And this is one close-up of one of these particular features, our pond, that allows the dogs to wade to different depths that they're comfortable with. And this is another opportunity. Jill put in a beautiful art piece here that can add some visual interest to it for people as well. Let's see, we also included our cats. Not all cats are outdoor cats, but we know that it's a very enriching experience for even indoor only cats. And so we've created catios. These catios are as far away from the dog areas as was reasonable given the design. We also created hedges for visual barriers because cats can be very stressed by a lot of activity, people, or seeing dogs moving around. There's also gates, thinking, okay, maybe somebody's got a cat on a harness or in a carrier, or they open their catio and cat decides they're gonna run. The gates at least will keep that cat from completely going the distance. But then this is, let's see, there's bird feeders in here because cats love to watch birds, but we're not going to make the birds hang out with the cats. And then go ahead to the next slide, Jill. Inside of the catios, again, it's very comfortable for the people and the animals. Cats love to go vertical. So that's going to be a really important opportunity for them to, again, express some choices. And choice, again, is one of those keystones of stress management. And as a side note, you could potentially also bring out like the bunnies or other small pets out here as long as it was secure, so that they can also get the benefits of the fresh air and the sunshine and so on.
Thank you. We're going to move back inside now, recognizing that there are other places within the shelter that would be well served to host both people and their animals to the extent possible. And one of those is what we call the living dining room. You'll recall this view is from the outside, and here was reception. We're about to look at this area here, this kind of elliptical oval section here, which is really the heart of the space. It's the area you come into once you pass through metal detectors or the reception area. It's the first place you hit, and it's kind of the gateway to everything else, to the animal suite for residents, to dining, to sleeping, to the medical and educational area back here, and so forth and so on. So you have to pass through this in order to get to other places. This is the view you would have once you get past reception. And it was intentionally laid out this way to kind of give you an orienting, sweeping look. So if you look all the way through here, back here is where you go through the buffet line for dining. Here is a podium and a small stage if you need to gather all clients and staff together for a meeting. This is also where you have a living room for gathering for seating or for doing homework. And over here is a place and a way for people with animals to participate as well to the extent that's possible. Also, you'll see here a message board for people to communicate, share ideas, meet up, and so forth and so on, all in a space that's got a lot of clear story windows here to give this a sense of light and volume. And then because so many people will be new to the space, we've got an anchor sort of pier here with a clock and so forth to give people a natural place to meet or to get themselves oriented as to where they are going and so forth. Looking over at this more of an overview, you can see some of the spaces I mentioned, the living room seating. There's a children's area back here that's got a small half wall. Dining is back here behind some walls. You actually come along the side here outside of the inner oval to queue up for dining. And this also gives the ability for staff to have places to meet with waiting diners if they need to have social services and so forth. Here is the messaging kiosk. Here is the dog play area. And importantly, here are windows to the cat and small animal areas in the animal clinic to try to integrate those animal areas just as much as possible. All of this leads outside to the back area for exterior dining, and importantly for us today, dining with animals here. Here are some more specific areas with animal supportive details. Where it's possible, we've added leash lines, which are lines that you could attach your dog to. These would be permanently affixed tables and so forth to relieve people from having to worry about where their animals are. And those are also present on sofas as well. Here you can see in front of where the dog area is some more scent or open portals to give animals some interesting things to consider. So we're trying to integrate animals as much as the shelter would like, or a shelter could choose not to have an animal in that area and then withdraw the leash lines for some options. Looking toward the back of the living and dining room area, here you can see once again the animal play area. This is actually recessed into the ground to provide higher walls and security for people above viewing the dogs from a safe vantage point. Back here is animal dining, and then access to the animal areas for the clients who are living there is here to feed their animals and so forth. So you can see this whole outside area here is a big area of moving around as people get to various areas within the shelter. Here's a better look at the recessed dog area with a double gate for security purposes. But this is lower in order to have higher walls here to give people a chance to see the animals and so forth, even if they don't want to participate with them themselves. And then, of course, the animals' companions can be in there with them, just to have a chance of joining everybody in this living dining space instead of being sequestered away from others. So we really tried to figure out a way to mingle them safely with these higher walls. Here you can see the dining area that's dedicated to people with animals. Here we have leash lines attached to these permanent tables once again. And for particularly emotional or excitable animals, you could have an enclosed pod here with a closable door where you could sit and eat at peace with your animal while still feeling a bit of a part of the overall action here. Moving on to sleeping spaces, we really wanted to talk about this because unlike other spaces, we wanted to give the ability for animals to be with their people even at night and so forth, instead of in a crate somewhere else. We have a lot of complexity here, but in short, I'll tell you that we have 6 different types of sleeping arrangements with a variety of degrees of privacy. Some of them are suitable for dogs and cats. Others are not suitable because we know that not all spaces in the shelter will need to accommodate animals. Some are particularly good with families and so forth. So here's the first 3. And then here's the second 3, family units that can serve up to 6 people, and then single flex apartments that have, for people with accessibility needs, have high health isolation or gender concerns or scrutiny would be coming into play, so those have an internal bathroom. So just a brief look at some of these. This is the smallest of the units. This is a 52-inch high wall with a partial door that allows somebody to have sleeping spaces with their animal right there. You'll notice that all of these have signage that allows somebody to personalize who is in there to build a little bit of community. And then this allows a little bit of permeability between the owner and their animal and people that are passing by, so it's not quite so isolated. A variation of that is a slightly larger unit for a single dweller with more storage, but still the half gate, and then also the option for a cat or other small animal tower if it's not a dog at play, but it's actually something with smaller and needs for a total enclosure like that. Here is a closer look at the family units. This can accommodate up to 6 people with 3 separately contained animals or having a cat or critter tower. You'll also notice there's mirrors and lots of places to hang book bags, purses, places to sit and so forth that allow this to really be a multi-purpose space with an interaction area in the middle. So we recognize that families sometimes just don't have enough options in a space, and this would allow animals and families to be at one, to be together. Here's an example of the special types of rooms. This happens to be for a cohabitating couple, and this shows a cat tower. This could easily be a dog crate instead, and these happen to have self-contained restrooms for special needs. And you can see all of these also have half doors that allow you to build some community with your neighbors next door if necessary. All of these, by the way, have changeable artwork for making this space your own, lighting to read by, a bolster cushion to sit up in bed, and even spaces up here to charge your devices. So a lot of small details that speak to the trauma-informed design pieces. Just quickly, here is just the overall look at the men's suite. And this is where it gets really complex because we've got areas for men with children, areas for men with children and or support animals, men without support animals in the green, and then men with special needs over here in the blue. But what unites all of this variety is that this main receptionist here has access to all of those areas in order to provide care and a sense of helpful surveillance. For some areas, as I'll explain in a moment, there are special entrances to minimize people and animals interacting. For example, here is the receptionist I mentioned, but over here it would be the entrance for people with animals. So they can see coming and going. They can go through this gate if necessary, but if somebody is over here who is animal averse, they do not have to interact with the animal. So we tried to be really sensitive to those kinds of comings and goings. And here you can see the separate entrances for children with families, and then animal and children areas here. You can also see we've worked in some details, such as here in the hallway would be a special place for dog or cat treats, waste bags and those kinds of things, animal toys, food puzzles, to really bring those amenities back into the sleeping areas.
Jill, we're getting into our Q&A time, so.
Okay, I'll take about 3 more minutes and then we'll be done.
Sounds good.
An area in
Got some good
okay.
questions.
Okay. A special area in the back for cats to keep that a little bit quieter if necessary. You can see that's kind of sequestered in the back. Bathrooms also have stalls large enough to assist clients with animals or children. And then similar sorts of layouts for the women with the addition here of co-sleeping units for cohabitating couples. I talked about the reception desk that can serve all of the different populations by where it's placed. And which leads me to the medical clinic. We're not going to have time to go into this in depth, but I just wanted to share with you one animal specific amenity we added. Here is where you would enter into the human medical clinic, but recognizing that some people may have dogs or cats, we have dog or cat waiting rooms flanking that area that either a family member could sit with that animal while the person is receiving care, or perhaps a staff member could do that instead in order to manage the presence of animals in a way that's workable. So that is what we had to say. And once again, if you didn't get a screenshot before of how to download the report, here is the URL for you as well. Please go ahead and get a screenshot of that in case you're interested. It is a free download. So with that, I think it's Q&A time.
Okay, I guess you and Rebecca can figure out who wants to answer the question. The first one is, how does design help my co-shelter function more efficiently?
I'll start, Jill, if you want to jump in after that. But
Go for it, sure.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier, where a lot of the fine detail aspects that have been integrated here are, the aim is to keep the stimulus level as low as possible, so that it promotes calm, it promotes rest to the extent, again, that you can, with whatever people and animals have been experiencing as they arrive here, and as whatever they're going through while they're living here. So again, thinking about when you want to have more visual access versus when you want to manage it and restrict it for the dogs in particular. Again, anything we can do to keep dogs from barking, whether that means we give them designated wild exercise time outside, or we make sure that people can provide enrichment opportunities for their pets, so that their minds have something to do. So as we, on the animal side, keep the animals' brains and bodies healthy, we help promote the behaviors that are acceptable and that help keep the environment feeling safe and as calm as possible. So again, lots of little parts of this are just trying to bring the overall level to the most calm and comfortable point possible. Jill, is there anything you'd want to add there?
Yeah, I think efficiency is a very, very important goal here. And I think if we do what's called an action analysis, if you look at how somebody enters into the dining space with their animal and how are they going to manage their animal while they go through the buffet line and so forth and so on, efficiency becomes a really important part of that, because you have to figure out, where is the animal going to go? Where am I going to go? And so we've really tried to take apart some of those processes by these leash lines, by these partially uncovered, enclosed pod areas, to kind of manage a process of human and animals through a space as efficiently as possible. But I also think we need to consider the efficiency of staff. Staff are on the front lines of helping these clients and animals manage their lives. And there's a lot of, staff turnover because of stress. So we've
Yes.
been trying to look at policies of how you check in, how you can get yourself a drink of water instead of having to ask for water. That would in turn help staff maintain, a sense of common stress too. We didn't look at the administration areas, but there are step away rooms for staff that let them recharge too. So efficiency also has to do a lot with how they are managing all of this too.
Yes.
Great. Next question is, how important is safety and security for the pets in a co-shelter? So we know about the residents. What about the pets?
Yeah. So I think my impression is that this is probably the theme that makes this feel hard to a lot of service providers who aren't already, maybe aren't feeling ready to offer a co-sheltering option. But I think, again, we set the environment up so that animals are set up in such a way where they can behave well. That helps. But then also things like when we think about the living area, people and animals can move into that central space, but people know their pets, right? And I'm thinking mostly about dogs here, but it could apply to other animals too. If it doesn't make sense because they know there's another dog in there that their dog's going to bark at, they can go around on that peripheral hallway. It's nice and wide. And so they can avoid interactions that they know aren't going to be successful for their particular dog. Or maybe that interaction started to happen, they can retreat and take a different route to get through to the outdoor space, for example. So lots of choices built into the environment. What else? Is there anything you'd add there, Jill? I'm sure there's more, but that's the main thing I've got.
Yeah, I think one of the
And
main
also,
things is we've given options for where you can
Yes.
go. You could go to a
Yes.
small pod, you could go to a dog run, you could go to the outdoor dog plaza, you could go to the living room, you could even stay in your sleeping area. Because people's moods and needs are going to change, I think, a lot. The other thing we've tried to do, which we didn't talk about so much today, is to manage both sight and smell lines by how people enter into areas, knowing that species are going to detect each other,
Yes.
and we're trying to minimize those negative interactions by just where rooms and hallways are placed.
Mm-hmm.
great. I think that answers the second question here, or the third question, creating a system where people and pets can co-shelter and not affect each other. So let's go down to the next question. From your perspective, what are the most important design elements that help people feel safe and respected when they enter a shelter with a pet?
I can start that one. I think honestly, from my point of view, it's coming into a space where your needs and perceptions have been anticipated.
Yes.
That you're going to feel stressed, that you're going to feel distracted, that you're going to be very concerned about the safety of your children and or animals. And we've tried to design around those anticipated perceptions. And I think one of the byproducts of that is that you will feel respected, you will feel heard, you will feel, positively assisted in that moment of need. Could we do better? Sure. But I think there are some things here that would really go far in helping along those lines.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
How about this one? It's about trauma informed design. As a community health worker, what should we look for in a shelter environment to know if it's truly trauma informed for both people and their animals?
Well, we could spend a lot of time on that one.
Yeah. I think if it's hard well, I think Jill's going to have some good things to add, so I'll keep this brief. You almost need to put yourself in the place of a person or animal who is entering this facility. But then the fact that you have choices about which seat in the waiting area, for example, feels like the spot that's right for you, that you're comfortable in, and you're not stuck going to a specific spot or an uncomfortable chair or whatever. Choice. I'm just going to keep going back to choice. You have choices and you almost don't notice it because they're just built into the overall design. What would you add, Jill?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think we haven't really decided as a human culture what that is. But for my 2 cents worth, I think it lies with those fundamental needs: dignity, providing a sense of privacy, providing security, providing a sense of choice, providing the ability to build community, the ability to manage stress, and the ability to be in the presence of art or beauty or order. I would say those 6 things are sort of an indicator that somebody thought about a traumatic state of mind. And if you want to, there's an entire report on trauma-informed design that was referenced in this report earlier that you can download for even more examples of that.
The next question deals with sanitation, and maybe this is something that Becky, you could answer. Can you talk a little bit about sanitation of animal spaces and disease control? I think you might also want to throw in there public spaces where animals may do bad things.
Yes. So the key part of this is that close to the time of arrival, we want a process where animals are getting screened for potentially zoonotic or infectious disease that could affect other animals. We want to look for evidence of that before they even start mingling in the population. So where we can avoid putting something into the population, we do our best. And then we probably need to also have some expectations around vaccinations so that if a disease makes its way into the facility, it's not going to spread as far because animals are protected by their vaccines and other preventative care like dewormers and so on. Beyond that, make it easy to clean up. And so just like when you're out walking your dog or at a dog park, you find stations with poop bags and places to put them, receptacles. If people don't want, if the community doesn't want dog poop to stay in one spot, you make it easy for people to pick it up and clean it up. So you might also provide some easy to use cleaning supplies and put those things around in a lot of places. And then in terms of sanitation, spot cleaning, we don't need to disinfect where an animal has been every day. This is a principle in the shelter world too. We might need to manage odors at some point with a certain cycle of laundering linens or something, but in terms of infectious disease, spot cleaning up the messes when needed, making it easy to do that. Once there's turnover, once an animal's leaving, if they spend a lot of time in a sleeping pod or a particular enclosure, we want to clean that really thoroughly and have good protocols in place for that.
I think the protocols is really important.
Yes.
Just to mention, seems like it would be common sense, but all cleaning supplies need to be separate for animals and pets. So you can't use the same mops, you can't use the same disinfectant, you can't use the same sink. You have to separate that out, as well as laundry. Dog laundry and cat laundry cannot be put into laundry facilities. So when you start to think about those animal pet centers, there are some protocols you need to follow. Let's do this one. There's a question about cooking. Do you have a special insurance to allow people to cook? So I'll just answer that because we put a commercial kitchen into our shelter. And yes, not special insurance per se, but a special permit and a food handling licenses. Yeah, that's a good question. That is important. Do you give presentations on retrofitting an existing shelter to start to include pets? Do you have a recorded presentation we can view? I don't think we do a presentation on retrofitting an existing shelter. If you wanted to call and ask me how we wanted to do that, we could do that. There are other organizations at the conference that do provide that service. But yes, there are groups at this conference that will help you retrofit, find a closet, find a bedroom, an office space where you could convert it into a pet center. It's not hard. We converted a room closet to start our pet care center. So I think we're getting right down to the end of our presentation. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, especially our presenters. Thank you for sharing your hard work, your research, and your conclusions. Something we all need to know, 90% of us are building co-shelters and we don't have any design advice. Super important.
Not
And just to,
anymore. Woohoo.
right? And just to thank my dog is my home for having this session today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chasing